Golden State Warriors aren't dead yet. What a performance last night against the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, they're basically locked in as the 10th seed going into the play-in tournament. But this was a nice reminder of what they can do. And I mean, look, when Draymond Green hits 5 threes in the first half, you should win that basketball game. All right, that should be over and done with. But everyone on Golden State was on fire in this game. Klay was hitting from 3. Peyton had a 3. Steph was Steph. Kuminga knocks down a 3 as well. This team was just letting it rain and putting on just a fantastic offensive performance. And I don't think they'd be able to do this against Minnesota. I don't think they'd be able to do this against Denver. And if they did against Denver, I still don't think it would matter. But when we're looking at just the play-in tournament here, this is still a team that can probably get through and get into the playoffs when the offense is clicking like this. When you have Klay and Curry and Draymond hitting from 3, Draymond just contributing. And this is another example of how important Draymond is and how that suspension in the early part of the season, I think, really cost this team because he is so important to what they do on both sides of the floor. Obviously, he's an all-defensive player, like an all-time great defensive player. And offensively, yes, 5 3-pointers is very anomalous, but like his vision of the floor and his playmaking ability does help give them another distributor out on the floor. And to not have that and try to figure out how everyone fits on this team on the fly without him and dealing with some injuries with Chris Paul as well, probably knocked this team back. I don't know if they're finishing 6th this year or anything like that, but they'd be in a better spot than having to win 2 road games just for the right to get your head bashed in by Minnesota or Denver in the first round. But this game really did show what this team can do when they are firing on all cylinders. And it showed that there is still that type of an offensive explosion in this team. So, again, it's not going to be easy, and I'm not saying they're even going to win a round, but I do think this put a bit of in the Los Angeles Lakers, who they will probably face at some point, either in the 9-10 game or in the 8th place game. That has to be a bit of an eye-opener for them. And this was a really tough loss for the Lakers. Their chance to leapfrog the Kings, who lost to Oklahoma City, and we'll talk about that in a second, their chance to get into the 7-8 game, they had that opportunity. They're still only half a game back of the Kings, but that just gives you so much more wiggle room. It would set up an all-time great matchup. I mean, they're getting one anyway. Lakers-Warriors probably in the 9-10. But right now, if the playoffs were today, it would have been, if they would have won, it would have been them and the Suns in the 7-8 game. So LeBron and KD in the 7-8, and the loser probably has to face Steph in the next round. My goodness, what a story all of that would be. It also shows the Lakers have like obvious flaws, right? And this is not going to be a podcast that is breaking any news. The Lakers have some troubles offensively, but they controlled the paint in this game, and it didn't matter. When it gets into a shootout, this Lakers team just doesn't have the guns to be able to do that. And it is still so wild to me that you get an all-NBA season from LeBron, an all-NBA type season from AD, who admittedly was not in the lineup for this game, but I don't think he's going out there and blocking Draymond 5 times from 3. And you're still stuck in this play-in. Also, you've had a phenomenal season from D'Angelo Russell, like beyond what we could have assumed best case scenario would have been, and Reeves has been fine, and you still are stuck in this area. Again, this has been talked to ad nauseum because of them being the Lakers and all of that, but this I thought was a bit of a maybe us just having LeBron and AD isn't going to be enough to just steamroll through these guys and get into the playoffs and go up against a Denver team who we really made work for 4 games, or a Minnesota team who doesn't have the experience we have. This was kind of I think a bit of an eye-opener for the Lakers in a spot that they really needed a good performance in. The Pelicans play their way out of the play-in area. They survived a wild shooting game from Portland, especially in the first half. It was nice seeing Scoot making a few plays. His playmaking was on display, hit a couple threes as well. Ayton hit a couple shots as well. Welcome back to, I was going to say relevancy, but no. But at least welcome back to competent basketball for a day to DeAndre Ayton. But then McCollum and Zion stepped up. There were a couple of other bench players that helped out for the Pelicans, but this was a couple of big players stepping up in some big-time moments. And Zion has proven that he can get back to at least close to what we thought he was going to be and be that guy who can carry this team kind of on his back. They still don't have Brandon Ingram, and that still hurts them a lot. There was a lot of times where scoring became a bit of a slog at some points. And that's against Portland. So this isn't a game where it's like, okay, well, Pelicans are here. Watch out. Who do they get? Oklahoma City? The Pelicans in 3. Don't even bother with the 4th. That's how dominant it's going to be. But that this is a game where they face some adversity. Zion pulls them out of it, and out they go out of the play-in, which is going to be so important to get a couple extra days for Ingram, to get Zion a bit of rest and not have to play in that rigorous type of a schedule. That's going to be very important for them. We mentioned before the Kings lose to Oklahoma City. Their injuries have just really sapped this team. Herter is out. Monk is out. Ellis steps up with just 1 3 after another. He was averaging 5 points a game. He passed that on 2 shots as he made his first 3. I think he made his first 4 threes and really helped him out. De'Aaron Fox was hitting from distance. Then in the second half, SGA basically just decided they weren't going to lose this game, and he adds to his MVP resume in a big-time way. He comes up with a big steal. He was hitting big shot after big shot. It was just so impressive watching him attack Sacramento. And I still think Jokic is the MVP, but I do think SGA would be second on my ballot right now, given what he has done with this group and helping them pick up a big-time win to keep them in range-ish of a 1, maybe a 2 seed in the Western Conference here right now. Shifting over to the East, and even in a win, the Bucks still lose. We will start with the big story. It's obviously the end of the game, or toward the end of the game, end of the third quarter. Giannis goes down. And for a team that has been limping to the finish, to see their star player literally limping off the court, initially, honestly, it's weird, but seeing him limp off the floor was kind of a good sign. Because when he first goes down, it's non-contact, and you're immediately thinking Achilles. And that would be devastating for the next 2 seasons for the Milwaukee Bucks. And when he gets up and is able to put any weight on it at all, what we've seen from Achilles injuries in the past is that wouldn't have been the case. So that was at least a major bullet dodged, but we still don't have a timetable for when he is going to come back. And it's so obvious, but going to say it anyway. If he's not in the lineup, this team ain't doing shit. They just simply don't have enough on this team, offensively or defensively, to be able to make any kind of noise in the postseason without Giannis. And the bummer for Milwaukee is that this comes on a game where things were starting to go right. They had 4 really bad losses in a row, and all of a sudden had the potential that they could fall to the 4 seed and end up playing the Celtics in the second round. And instead, they came out and played some really good ball. Lillard was drawing double teams. Lopez was hitting everything from 3. They had some good defensive plays. Porta stepped up. Middleton had a quick impact in this game as well. So you were starting to see, and you were starting to see what it's supposed to look like for Milwaukee. And Boston, I don't really feel like their hearts were in it all that much. There was no Porzingis for them in this game. Tatum had some moments to try to drag them back, but it was just a strong performance from Milwaukee, who I think really needed that. Even though, like, that could have been anyone out there. The Washington Generals, who cares? It was just that Milwaukee could get a little bit of momentum going in their way that felt so good until it didn't when Giannis goes down with that injury, and they're still facing some pressure. If they had lost this game, they would have been tied with the Knicks for the 2 seed, and you either lose home court advantage in the second round, or, like I said, a couple of big games from Orlando and the Knicks, and you're dropping down to the 4 seed, and you have to play the Celtics in the second round. That's a problem. Another thing that could be a problem for them is if they finish as the 2 seed, there's a very real chance they play the 76ers in the first round. And that's a problem because Joel Embiid is all the way back. He was incredible last night. Not the stiffest competition against the Detroit Pistons, but he played over 30 minutes. He didn't look gassed at all, and he had that game in the palm of his hand the entire way. It was phenomenal control. His passing was crisp. He was hitting from range. He was dominating in the post. He was everything you thought Joel Embiid could be, and he was it at the fullest of his capabilities. Again, it was against Detroit. But again, I don't think it matters. It's just to see that guy doing that. And if it's them against the Bucks in the first round, I don't know if I'm picking Milwaukee, to be perfectly honest with you. They did this without Maxey. So you notice the depth struggle a little bit. Embiid has 37. No one else on the team has 20. But this is still a team that I think is going to be a real problem for whoever they face in the postseason and a real wild card going forward. So we take a look at the updated standings, or at least I take a look. I'm not putting a graphic up, but take a look at the updated NBA standings. And as it sits right now, In the East, Boston has locked it up. They have a 14-game lead on the Milwaukee Bucks right now. Just for reference, the Denver Nuggets, who are tied for first in the West right now, have a 14-game lead on everyone else in the play-in. They're like Houston is 16 games out. That is the difference between Boston and second place and Denver and 10th. It's insane how dominant they are. The Bucks are still in second. They are one game up on the Knicks for third, 2 games up on the Magic and Cavs in the 4-5 right now, and 2.5 games up on the Indiana Pacers. So as it sits right now, the playoff matchups that we would know would be Orlando against Cleveland in the NBA TV series, and the Knicks against the Pacers. And we would get all the Reggie Miller clips for 5 games before the Knicks end up knocking them out. And then the Celtics and Bucks see who they face. The first play-in right now would be the 76ers and the Heat. The second one is locked in. It's the Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks. The Heat are a game and a half out of not being in the play-in, out of 6 behind Indiana, and the 76ers are still just a game back of the Pacers. Man, if they get into the 6-3 and end up getting the Knicks in the first round, could be a whole lot of pissed off New Yorkers about that situation. We know, again, the 10 that are in the NBA. Huge game tonight out west with Minnesota taking on Denver. Winner of that game will be top seed in the Western Conference. Oklahoma City is behind that tie right now. They sit in third. Clippers and Mavericks are locked in the 4-5 pretty well. And then you have the scenario we talked about before. Pelicans are 1 game up on Phoenix for 6th right now, 2 games up on Sacramento. And now in that play-in area right now, the Suns and Kings would be the matchup, and Lakers and Warriors would be that matchup. But again, the Suns 1 game out of not being in the play-in, and the Lakers are half a game back of Sacramento for that 8th spot right now. So still a lot to be decided in the last couple of games in the NBA.